There is a version of you that you quietly avoid, not because you don't see it, but because you do. It appears in moments of silence, when distractions fade and your thoughts become honest. It shows up in the ambitions you hesitate to name, in the lives you admire from a distance, and in the uncomfortable feeling that you are capable of more than the life you are currently living. This version of you is not imaginary. It is real, and that is exactly why it frightens you. Carl Jung believed that fear is never random. According to him, the psyche reacts most strongly not to danger, but to transformation. The things that intimidate you, responsibility, visibility, commitment, self-expression, are often signs of expansion, not threat. The unconscious does not fear failure nearly as much as it fears the death of an old identity. Because to grow is not simply to add something new. It is to let something familiar die. Most people interpret fear as a warning. They assume that if something feels uncomfortable, it must be wrong. But Jung saw fear differently. He believed fear often appears at the threshold of individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are. It arises when the ego senses that control is slipping, that excuses will no longer work, and that life is asking for participation rather than observation. You may tell yourself that you are lost, that you need more time, more clarity, more confidence before you can move forward. But Jung would argue that this feeling of being lost is often a psychological defense, a way of postponing responsibility, a way of delaying the moment when you must stop explaining your life and start living it. The tragedy is not that people fail. The tragedy is that they succeed at staying small. They construct lives that feel safe but empty. They trade aliveness for predictability. They suppress the parts of themselves that feel intense, ambitious, creative, or powerful, and then wonder why anxiety, boredom, and restlessness begin to grow beneath the surface. This video is not about motivation. It is not about forcing confidence or pretending fear doesn't exist. It is about understanding why the person you are afraid to become is often the person your psyche is calling you toward, and why avoiding that call does not bring peace. It brings quiet psychological suffering that if Carl Jung was right, then your fear is not your enemy. It is a message, and the life you are afraid to live may be the only one capable of making you whole. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid fear. They treat it as an obstacle, a weakness, or a sign that something has gone wrong. From an early age, we are taught that fear means danger, and that courage means eliminating it. But Carl Jung believed this misunderstanding is one of the greatest psychological errors a person can make. According to Jung, fear is not merely an emotional reaction, it is information. It reveals where psychic energy is concentrated. It marks the places in your life where growth is being resisted. If you pay close attention, you will notice that fear does not appear around what is meaningless. It gathers around what matters most, around responsibility, around change, around the possibility of becoming someone you cannot easily retreat from. What truly frightens us is not failure. It is irreversibility. The moment you take a step toward your authentic path, you cannot pretend you didn't know. You cannot return to innocence. Fear arises because the ego senses that once you move forward, the old excuses, lack of time, lack of clarity, lack of confidence, will no longer protect you. And the ego's primary task is not growth. It is survival. Jung observed that people often confuse comfort with safety, but psychological comfort is not the same as psychological health. A life built entirely around avoiding fear becomes narrow, rigid, and fragile. Over time, what was once avoided externally begins to manifest internally as anxiety, restlessness, or a persistent feeling that life is happening somewhere else. Fear, in this sense, functions like a compass. It does not point toward what is easy. It points toward what is necessary. The direction that provokes the most resistance is often the direction that contains the most life. Jung believed that when fear appears without immediate physical danger, it is often a sign that the psyche is attempting to move toward wholeness. This is why ignoring fear does not make it disappear. It only changes its form. What is avoided consciously is confronted unconsciously. What is not faced voluntarily returns as symptoms, crises, or emotional collapse. The psyche will eventually demand balance. Whether you cooperate or not, to follow fear as a compass does not mean reckless action. It means honest observation. It means asking not, how do I get rid of this fear? But what is this fear asking of me? Because behind fear is usually a truth you already know, and a life you are delaying. Jung's message is simple, but difficult. Where your fear is, there your task is also. Carl Jung believed that the human psyche is not divided into good and bad, but into known and unknown. At the center of this unknown territory lies what he called the shadow, the parts of yourself you have learned to hide, deny, or disown in order to be accepted, loved, or left alone. The shadow is not created by accident. It is shaped by family expectations, social rules, moral judgments, and unspoken punishments that teach you which parts of yourself are allowed to exist. From an early age, you learn what is too much, too loud, too sensitive, too ambitious, too emotional, too independent. Each time a part of you is rejected or discouraged, it does not disappear. It goes underground. It becomes unconscious. And over time, this rejected energy forms the shadow, not because it is evil, but because it is unseen. One of Jung's most unsettling insights is that the shadow does not only contain darkness. It also contains strength, creativity, assertiveness, confidence, and power. Often, the very traits you admire in others are traits you have disowned in yourself. When you feel irrational irritation, envy, or fascination towards someone, Jung would say you are likely encountering your shadow projected outward. The reason the shadow produces fear is not because it wants to destroy you. It is because it threatens the identity you have built. To integrate the shadow means admitting that you are more complex, more capable, and more dangerous than the version of yourself you present to the world. And this realization destabilizes the ego, which prefers predictability over truth. When the shadow is ignored, it does not remain silent. It expresses itself indirectly through self-sabotage, emotional outbursts, passive aggression, chronic guilt, or secret resentment. The more forcefully you deny it, the more distorted its expression becomes. Jung warned that what is not made conscious is lived out unconsciously, often in ways that harm yourself and others. Shadow integration is not about becoming reckless or immoral. It is about reclaiming what was lost. It is about allowing previously rejected parts of yourself to exist consciously, where they can be directed rather than feared. Jung believed that only by confronting the shadow can a person become whole. Until then, fear will continue to follow you, not as a threat, but as a reminder of the self you abandoned in order to survive. It is easy to believe that people fear failure, but Carl Jung understood something more disturbing. Many people fear their own power far more than their weakness. Weakness offers excuses. Power demands responsibility, and responsibility threatens the fragile identities we have constructed to feel safe in the world. Power changes the rules of your life. The moment you recognize your own potential, you can no longer blame circumstances, other people, or the past in the same way. You become accountable not only for what you do, but for what you refuse to do. Jung believed that this realization produces anxiety because the ego senses that comfort will no longer be possible. Power also threatens belonging. When you begin to step into your authentic capabilities, you may outgrow relationships, environments, and roles that once defined you. Success can provoke envy. Confidence can provoke rejection. Independence can feel like betrayal. The unconscious knows this, and it resists change by creating doubt, hesitation, and self-sabotage. This is why people often unconsciously destroy opportunities that could transform their lives. They miss deadlines, lose motivation, overthink decisions, or suddenly feel uninspired when progress becomes real. Jung did not see this as laziness. He saw it as fear of crossing a psychological threshold from possibility into reality. There is also a deeper reason power is frightening. To claim your strength means to accept your capacity to influence the world. And with influence comes moral weight. You can no longer pretend that your actions do not matter. Jung believed many people retreat from their power because they fear making mistakes, harming others, or being seen clearly. But denying power does not make you harmless. It makes you unconscious. Repressed power does not disappear, it turns inward. It becomes bitterness, resentment, chronic dissatisfaction, or quiet self-hatred. Jung warned that people who refuse their strength often become ruled by it from below, rather than directing it consciously. The paradox is this: power does not corrupt consciousness, avoidance does. When power is integrated, it becomes responsibility, discipline, and creative force. When it is denied, it becomes anxiety and inner conflict. The fear you feel when stepping toward your potential is not a signal to stop. It is a signal that your old identity can no longer contain who you are becoming. Jung's insight is unsettling but clear. The life you fear stepping into is often the life that would demand the best of you and reveal who you truly are. Carl Jung used the word persona to describe the mask we wear to function in society. It is the version of ourselves shaped by expectations, professional roles, social behavior, cultural norms, and unspoken rules about what is acceptable. The persona is not false in itself. It is necessary. Without it, we could not navigate the world. But problems arise when the mask becomes the face. Over time, many people begin to identify entirely with their persona. They confuse who they appear to be with who they actually are. They make choices based on approval rather than truth, stability rather than meaning. And because the persona is designed to adapt, not to express the soul, this over-identification slowly drains life of depth and vitality. The tension begins quietly. A sense of emptiness, a feeling of restlessness, a vague dissatisfaction that has no obvious cause. Jung believed this discomfort is the psyche's way of signaling imbalance. The true self, the deeper, organizing center of the personality, is being ignored. The more rigid the persona becomes, the stronger the inner conflict grows. You may feel anxious for no clear reason. You may feel exhausted even when nothing seems wrong. You may feel like you are performing your life rather than living it. Jung understood these symptoms not as personal failure, but as signs that the soul is being silenced. The fear of letting go of the persona is profound. Behind the mask lies uncertainty. If you release it, who will you be? How will others respond? What will you lose? The persona promises protection, but at the cost of authenticity. And the longer it is clung to, the more foreign your own inner voice becomes. Jung warned that a life lived entirely through the persona leads to psychological fragmentation. The inner world and outer world drift apart. The person appears successful, functional, even admirable, yet feels internally hollow. This is not because they lack something, but because they have abandoned something essential. Reconnecting with the true self does not mean rejecting society or responsibility. It means allowing your outer life to align, gradually and honestly, with your inner truth. It means risking disapproval in order to gain integrity. It means choosing meaning over image. Jung believed that anxiety often arises when the true self demands recognition. It is the quiet pressure of becoming real. And until the mask loosens, fear will continue, not to punish you, but to guide you back to yourself. Carl Jung believed that the central task of human life is individuation, the process of becoming a whole, integrated self. This does not mean becoming perfect, successful, or admired. It means becoming real, And the reason this process is so frightening is because it demands the death of identities that once kept you safe. Individuation is not a self-improvement project. It is a confrontation with everything you have avoided, suppressed, or postponed. To individuate is to accept the tension between opposites within yourself, strength and vulnerability, order and chaos, light and shadow, without collapsing into one side. This process inevitably involves loss. You lose illusions. You lose old roles. You lose the comfort of certainty. Jung understood that the psyche resists individuation because it threatens the ego's sense of control. The ego wants clarity before action, reassurance before risk. Individuation demands the opposite, action before certainty. This is why fear intensifies at the edge of transformation. When you feel paralyzed just before a meaningful change, it is often because the psyche senses that something irreversible is about to occur. Once you step forward, you cannot unsee what you have seen. You cannot return to the smaller version of yourself without psychological cost. Jung described this moment as a symbolic death, not a physical one, but the death of outdated identities, the obedient child, the people pleaser, the invisible observer, the version of you built to survive rather than to live. And like all deaths, it is accompanied by grief, resistance, and fear. But Jung was clear: avoiding individuation leads to stagnation. A life that refuses inner growth eventually turns against itself. Anxiety increases, meaning erodes. What was once unconscious begins to demand expression in disruptive ways. The psyche does not allow wholeness to be denied indefinitely. Individuation is painful not because it is wrong, but because it is honest. It strips away false certainty and replaces it with responsibility. You are no longer asking, "Who should I be?" but "Who am I willing to become?" Jung believed that wholeness does not come from comfort. It comes from courage, the courage to walk into the unknown with your fear intact. Because fear, in this context, is not a sign of danger. It is a sign that something true is being born. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious does not respond to logic alone. It speaks in images, symbols, emotions, and inner figures. To communicate with it, Jung developed a method he called active imagination, a deliberate way of entering into dialogue with the deeper layers of the psyche. This was not fantasy or escape. It was confrontation. Active imagination begins with stillness, with allowing an image, a feeling, or a figure to emerge without immediately controlling it. Jung discovered that when the ego stops interrupting, the unconscious reveals what has been waiting to be seen. Often, what appears first is not comforting. It is the very part of yourself you avoid. This feared inner figure may appear as a stronger version of you, a more decisive one, a more creative one, or a darker one. It may confront you with truths you have postponed. It may accuse you of cowardice, complacency, or dishonesty. Jung insisted that these figures are not hallucinations. They are symbolic representations of psychological realities. The purpose is not obedience. It is dialogue. Jung warned against surrendering blindly to inner voices. The task is to listen, respond, question, and integrate. Through this exchange, the unconscious becomes conscious, and fear begins to lose its grip. What makes active imagination unsettling is that it removes excuses. When you encounter the self you have avoided, you can no longer pretend ignorance. The psyche presents you with images of what could be, and what will be lost if you continue to resist. This is why many people avoid inner work. It demands accountability. Jung believed that transformation begins when imagination becomes real, when insights are honored through action, even in small ways. Without this, active imagination turns into escapism, but when acted upon, it becomes a bridge between inner truth and outer life. Meeting the feared self is not about becoming someone else. It is about reclaiming what has already been part of you. The courage you admire, the clarity you envy, the strength you fear, these are not foreign. They are yours, waiting for recognition. Jung understood that fear diminishes when faced consciously, not because it disappears, but because it becomes meaningful. What once felt overwhelming becomes guidance. The unconscious stops shouting when it is heard. Active imagination teaches a simple but demanding lesson. The self you are afraid to meet is often the self trying to lead you forward. Carl Jung warned that the greatest danger to a human being is not suffering, but stagnation. When the call toward growth is ignored, life does not become neutral. It becomes distorted. What the psyche is not allowed to express outwardly will eventually turn inward, seeking another path to be seen at first. Refusal feels harmless. You tell yourself you will begin later, when things are clearer, when circumstances improve, when fear disappears. But Jung understood that this delay is not passive. It is an active psychological decision. And every decision has consequences, whether conscious or not. Over time, the cost of refusal begins to surface subtly. A persistent anxiety with no obvious cause, a dull sense of meaninglessness, irritability, fatigue, restlessness. Life feels heavier than it should. Jung believed these were not random symptoms, but signals, signs that the psyche is out of alignment with its own direction. What is avoided consciously returns unconsciously. This was one of Jung's most serious warnings. If you refuse to face your potential voluntarily, life will eventually confront you through crisis. Relationships collapse. Careers lose meaning. Emotional pressure builds until it demands release. Jung called this process enantiodromia, the tendency of extreme avoidance to reverse into its opposite. What is avoided consciously returns unconsciously. This was one of Jung's most serious warnings. If you refuse to face your potential voluntarily, life will eventually confront you through crisis. Relationships collapse. Careers lose meaning. Emotional pressure builds until it demands release. Jung called this process enantiodromia, the tendency of extreme avoidance to reverse into its opposite, that a person who avoids responsibility becomes overwhelmed by chaos. A person who avoids confrontation becomes consumed by resentment. A person who avoids becoming themselves becomes haunted by what they did not live. The psyche seeks balance, and it will enforce it if necessary. Jung did not say this to frighten people. He said it to wake them up. He believed that many forms of depression and anxiety are not illnesses to be eliminated, but messages to be understood. They arise when life is being lived against its own inner logic. Refusal also erodes self-respect. Each time you ignore what you know to be true, trust in yourself weakens. Confidence is not built by positive thinking. It is built by honoring inner truth through action. When action is delayed too long, the psyche turns against the ego. Yet even here, Jung saw hope. The symptoms are not punishments. They are invitations. The psyche does not want your destruction. It wants your participation. The cost of refusal is not immediate disaster. It is something quieter, the slow fading of vitality. And Jung believed that recognizing this cost is often the moment when transformation finally becomes unavoidable. Transformation begins quietly, almost imperceptibly. Carl Jung believed that the first step toward becoming yourself is rarely dramatic. It is symbolic, small, and honest, a gesture that communicates to the psyche, I am willing to begin. Courage does not require the absence of fear. Courage requires moving forward despite it. The first step may be as simple as naming a truth you have avoided, writing it down, speaking it aloud, facing a reality you have been hiding from. Jung understood that small, intentional acts carry immense psychological weight. They signal to the unconscious that the ego is ready to cooperate, that resistance is being softened. This symbolic step is not about perfection. It does not demand certainty or guarantees. The goal is alignment, not control. When you act in accordance with inner truth, the psyche responds. Anxiety may still appear, but it shifts from being a paralyzing force into a guide. Fear becomes a signal, not a blockade. Often, the first step reveals a path that was previously invisible. It is no longer a matter of vague intentions or postponed ambitions. It is a concrete movement toward integration, toward wholeness. Jung observed that once momentum begins, the inner resistance starts to dissolve, not entirely, but enough for subsequent steps to become possible. The courage required is deceptively simple. It is the willingness to acknowledge that the person you fear becoming is also the person you are meant to be. It is the willingness to risk judgment, failure, or discomfort in order to honor your inner calling. This step is the doorway, not the journey. It signals that you are choosing life, even in its uncertainty. Every step forward, no matter how small, shifts the balance. The psyche begins to align with conscious intent. Strengths emerge that were dormant. Fear remains, but it loses its authority. Each subsequent action is built on this foundation, slowly reinforcing the emerging self. Jung would say that the first step is always the hardest, because it represents the symbolic death of avoidance. This is why hesitation feels heavier at the start. Once you take it, even imperfectly, you cannot return to the old complacency. Something inside you has awakened. Something that has been waiting for acknowledgement, waiting for permission to live fully. The first courageous step is not heroic in appearance, but monumental in consequence. It is the beginning of becoming who you are afraid to be. Now something has shifted. Even if it is subtle, even if fear still lingers, you are no longer frozen. Movement has begun, and in that movement, life begins to respond. Carl Jung believed that the psyche is not satisfied with inaction. It rewards honesty. The moment you align your choices with your inner truth, even in the smallest way, a new energy emerges. At first, this change is quiet. You may notice a slight increase in energy, a soft clarity, a gentle sense of direction that was absent before. It is not dramatic. It is not guaranteed to feel thrilling, but it is undeniable. Relief comes not from external success, but from the knowledge that you have stopped betraying yourself. Stagnation is never neutral. It is a slow erosion of vitality. Jung warned that clarity does not come before action. It comes after. The first steps illuminate only a portion of the path. They reveal possibilities, not certainties. You may still doubt, hesitate, or feel fear, but fear no longer controls the direction. It becomes a guide, a marker of what is meaningful. The very obstacles that once paralyzed you now signal growth. Individuation unfolds gradually. It is not a sudden transformation, but a process of continual realignment. Each step toward authenticity strengthens your emerging identity. Each choice made with awareness chips away at the old structures of avoidance, denial, and conformity. You become someone who responds rather than someone who waits. Someone in motion rather than someone frozen. Over time, momentum builds. One honest action creates another. One recognition of truth allows another part of the psyche to emerge. The narrative of being lost begins to dissolve. You realize that you were never truly without direction. You were simply disconnected from your own authority. The courage to begin, once taken, cannot be undone. Jung wrote that becoming oneself is not about adding something new, but removing what is false, the masks, the borrowed expectations, the roles designed to please others. What remains is demanding because it requires responsibility, but it also brings life, meaning, and integrity. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are standing at the threshold of yourself. And now, having taken the first step, you have crossed it. The life you feared is the life that can save you.